The sun hung low and bloated in the rust-colored sky, casting long shadows across the cracked expanse of the desert battlefield. Sand shifted like powdered bone beneath the wind's slow breath, swirling around broken war machines and the twisted remains of soldiers, both human and alien, that had fallen during the final clash between Earth's last expedition and the dying remnants of the Zanari Empire. Among the wreckage, a lone figure moved with practiced silence. Ren, a wiry scavenger from the dust towns beyond the dunes, wrapped in faded thermal cloaks and goggles that reflected the dying light. His boots crunched over shattered crystal rifles and scorched alloy plates as he scanned the horizon. Always alert, always hungry. He wasn't a soldier, never had been. But survival on the edge of two dead civilizations meant knowing where to look when the guns fell silent. And today he'd found something worth risking his neck for. There she lay, half buried beneath a collapsed command tower shaped like a spiral horn, her body encased in armor that shimmered even under layers of sand. The queen of the Zanari, they said, a myth whispered by desert traders and mad prophets. Her form was humanoid but taller than any human, slender and elegant even in death. Her skin glowed faintly white, like moonlight trapped beneath glass, and her long hair, pure silver white, spilled across the rubble like liquid mercury. The armor covering her was masterwork, interlocking plates of gold forged with alien precision, studded with diamonds the size of thumbs, each pulsing faintly with dormant energy. At the center of her chest, embedded in a golden sunburst, was the diamond, the heartstone of Xina, rumored to hold the soul light of their ancestors and enough power to reignite a dead star. Ren's breath caught. This wasn't just salvage. This was legend. This was fortune. He crept forward, heart thumping against his ribs like a drumbeat. Every instinct screamed danger, but greed sang louder. With trembling fingers, he pulled out a micro-laser cutter from his belt, its beam humming softly as it sliced through the delicate locking mechanism at the base of the chest plate. One by one, the golden segments loosened. He worked fast, sweat trickling down his temple despite the cooling air. The diamonds came off easily. Some he pocketed, others he dropped into his satchel. But the heartstone, that was different. It was fused deep into the core of the armor, glowing faintly blue, almost breathing. As he reached in with magnetic tongs, the ground trembled. Not from wind or distant quakes, from her. Her fingers twitched. Then her eyelids fluttered open. Ren froze, blood turning to ice. Those eyes, pale gold like molten honey, focused on him. Not with rage, not with horror, but with something worse. Gratitude. She let out a soft, melodic sound, like wind chimes underwater, and slowly sat up, the broken armor falling away like petals. Her gaze locked onto his hands still near her chest. "You freed me," she whispered, voice echoing as if spoken from inside a cathedral. Ren opened his mouth to explain, to scream, to run. But no words came. Before he could react, she placed a cool, slender hand on his shoulder. A surge of warmth flooded through him, calming his panic. "My savior," she murmured, rising to full height, towering over him. "The prophecy foretold your arrival." He wanted to say, "I was stealing from you," but instead he stammered, Yeah, sure, prophecy. That's me." She smiled then, a radiant thing that made the air shimmer. Without another word, she lifted him effortlessly into the air. Not roughly, but gently, as if he were a child, and summoned a sleek, hovering vessel shaped like a crescent blade from beneath the sands. It hummed to life, its surface reflecting the stars now appearing overhead. Ren barely had time to blink before he was inside, seated on cushions softer than clouds, staring at the queen who believed he had resurrected her from death itself. They soared over the desert, the ruined battlefield shrinking behind them, replaced by vast dunes that stretched toward jagged obsidian mountains. Ren stared out the window, stunned. "So, you're alive?" he finally asked. She turned to him, her expression serene. "Not quite. Not fully. My body was preserved in stasis after the betrayal of my generals. My spirit lingered in the heartstone. You reconnected it. You brought me back." Ren glanced at the diamond now resting in his palm. He hadn't even realized he still held it. He quickly handed it over. "Oh, right, here. Didn't mean to." "Keep it." She took it gently, placing it back into her chest, where it sank into the armor and flared with brilliant light. "You did more than return it. You awakened me. For that, you shall be honored." When they arrived at the palace, Ren thought he died and dreamt this. Built into the side of a mountain carved like a sleeping god, the fortress gleamed with ivory stone and veins of gold. Towers spiraled upward like frozen flames, and bridges of light connected floating platforms where winged attendants glided silently. Gardens bloomed with flowers that sang in harmonic tones, and fountains poured liquid silver. Servants, slender, pale-skinned Zanari with eyes like polished gemstones, bowed deeply as the queen entered, carrying Ren beside her like a conquering hero. "This is Kalen Vire," she announced, giving him a name that sounded ancient and noble. "He has restored the Lightbringer. Treat him as royalty." And so began Ren's new life. A life so absurd he often pinched himself to make sure he wasn't hallucinating from dehydration. He was bathed in pools of warm starlight essence, which tickled, dressed in robes woven from solar thread, and fed fruits that burst with flavor so intense it made him laugh and cry at the same time. He was given a suite larger than his entire hometown, filled with furniture that rearranged itself based on his mood. A personal AI named Lumi followed him around, offering philosophical insights and terrible jokes in a voice like a jazz singer. "Why don't Zanari ever get lost?" she once asked. "Because we always follow our heart light." Ren groaned. "That's awful." "Exactly," she replied. "Comedy requires sacrifice." Still, despite the luxury, Ren couldn't shake the guilt. Every night, he stared at the ceiling, wondering when the truth would come out. What would happen when she discovered he hadn't saved her, hadn't even tried, that he'd been seconds away from vanishing into the desert with her most sacred relic? He tried to tell her once, during a quiet moment in the moon garden, where bioluminescent trees pulsed with gentle rhythm. "Look," he began. "About that day, I wasn't exactly rescuing you." She tilted her head, smiling. "You hesitate. That shows humility, a rare trait in saviors." He blinked. "No, I mean I was robbing you." She laughed, a sound like bells dancing on water. "Ah, modesty. You downplay your deeds. How endearing." Ren gave up. The lie had taken root, and he was trapped in it, like a fly in cosmic honey. But something unexpected happened as days turned to weeks. He started to care, not just about staying alive but about her. The queen, whose real name was Sirillai, though she allowed only the highest priests to speak it, was unlike anyone he'd ever known. She carried sorrow like a second shadow, mourning her people, her empire, the centuries lost. Yet she laughed easily, danced in the star courts at midnight, and challenged him to games of gravity chess, where pieces floated and attacked in 3 dimensions. Once, after he beat her by accident, she threw her head back and roared with delight. "A mortal bests the last light of Xina. The universe shifts." He grinned, feeling something warm bloom in his chest, something dangerous. She also had quirks, like how she refused to wear shoes because the floor sings to her feet, or how she insisted on singing lullabies to the palace's energy core every evening. Claiming it kept the heart steady. Or how she once summoned a storm indoors just to see what rain looked like on velvet rugs. "It's damp," she observed, fascinated. Ren found himself laughing more than he ever had. He taught her human slang. "Chill, no biggie, that's whack." And she repeated them in her melodic voice with perfect seriousness, confusing everyone. When a servant dropped a tray, she calmly said, "Yo, that's whack." And the entire court froze in horror. Ren nearly choked on his drink. But not everything was whimsy. Strange tremors shook the palace at night. Shadows flickered where there should be none. And sometimes, Ren saw figures in the mirrors, Zanari soldiers with hollow eyes, whispering in a language that hurt to hear. Sirillai noticed his unease. "The past clings," she admitted one evening, standing on a balcony overlooking the endless desert. "My generals didn't just betray me. They tried to erase me. Their spirits are bound to old oaths. Restless. They do not accept that I have returned, or that you are here." Ren frowned. "Do they know the truth?" She turned to him, golden eyes soft. "It does not matter what they know, only what I believe. And I believe you are my dawn." He swallowed hard. That night, he dreamed of fire and screaming, of running through ruins while something hunted him. He woke gasping, drenched in sweat. Lumi dimmed the lights soothingly. Nightmare detected, playing calming frequencies. Soft harp music filled the room. But Ren couldn't sleep. He wandered the halls, drawn to the archive of echoes, a chamber where memories of the dead played like holograms on the walls. There, he found records of the final battle. He watched Sirillai, radiant and fierce, leading her armies against the rebellion. He saw the betrayal, her own commanders surrounding her, weapons glowing with corrupted energy. He saw her fall, the heartstone ripped from her chest, her body sealed in armor and buried beneath the command tower. And then, silence, until he appeared. Him, Ren. Tiny, ragged, poking at her corpse with a laser tool. The recording showed everything, the theft, the panic, the moment the heartstone reactivated and revived her. Ren's stomach dropped. She'll kill me, he thought, or worse, banish me back to the desert. But when he returned to his room, he found Sirillai waiting, seated cross-legged on his bed, holding a small fruit that glowed like a lantern. "You've been searching," she said, not unkindly. "You seek the truth." Ren nodded, unable to speak. She took his hand. "I know what you think you saw, but the recording is incomplete. It does not show the intent behind actions, only the light within them. When you touched the heartstone, it responded, not because of force, because of harmony. Something in you resonates with the ancient frequency. No thief could awaken me. Only one chosen by the light could." Ren stared at her. "You really believe that?" She smiled. "I don't believe it. I know it." He didn't know whether to feel relieved or more guilty. But one thing became clear: he couldn't leave. Not now. Not when she looked at him like he was the answer to a question the universe had forgotten. And then, the attacks began. It started with missing servants, vanishing without a trace. Then came the whispers in the corridors, voices calling Ren's name in distorted echoes. One night, a shadow lunged from the wall, a half-formed Zanari warrior made of smoke and malice, swinging a blade of dark energy. Ren barely dodged, rolling behind a pillar as the weapon shattered marble. Sirillai appeared in a flash of light, her armor blazing, and with a single gesture, dispersed the creature into screaming mist. "They grow stronger," she said grimly. "The betrayer's spirits refuse to rest. They fear what you represent. A new beginning. They will try to destroy you." Ren spent the next few days training. Not as a warrior, he was too clumsy, too human, but as a guardian. Sirillai taught him to channel the Heartstone's energy through a wristband device, allowing him to create shields and pulses of light. He wasn't graceful, often zapping himself in the foot or accidentally turning the dining table into a flock of glowing birds. That was not on purpose, but he improved, slowly. Meanwhile, their bond deepened. They shared stories, hers of starfaring empires and celestial wars, his of dust towns and scavenging wrecks just to eat. She listened with rapt attention, as if his life were an epic poem. "You survived without magic, without grace, without light," she once said. "And yet you are kind. How is that possible?" He shrugged. "Guess I'm just built different." One evening, during a festival of floating lanterns released into the sky, Sirillai took his hand and led him to the highest tower. Below, the palace glittered like a jewel. Above, the galaxy sprawled in breathtaking glory. "Ren," she said, using his real name for the first time, "you have brought more light to my world than all the stars combined." His breath caught. "Sirillai, but she pressed a finger to his lips. "No need to speak. I see it in your eyes." And then, impossibly, she leaned in and kissed him. A touch soft as snowfall, warm as sunrise. Time stopped. The universe narrowed to that moment. Her silver hair brushing his cheek, the scent of ozone and jasmine, the way her light wrapped around them both like a cocoon. When she pulled away, her eyes shimmered. "I love you," she whispered. "Not because of prophecy, not because of duty, because you made me feel again. After centuries of silence, you gave me laughter, hope, love." Ren didn't know how to respond. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't noble. He was a thief, a liar, a nobody from a dead rock of a planet. And yet, she loved him, truly, deeply. And to his own surprise, he realized he loved her too. Not because of the palace or the power or the magic, but because she saw him, not the legend he pretended to be. And she chose him anyway. But fate, as always, was watching. That night, the ground split open beneath the eastern wing of the palace. From the fissure rose 5 spectral figures clad in corrupted armor, eyes burning with violet fire, the fallen generals, their forms stitched together from hatred and ancient code. They spoke as one, their voices layered and cold. "False king, false light, you do not belong. The queen is ours. The throne is ours. The heartstone will be ours." Sirillai stepped forward, radiant in her full battle armor, Ren at her side. "You died in dishonor," she declared. "You have no claim here." The lead general sneered. And yet you rise for a thief? A worm from a dying world? You disgrace the bloodline. Ren flinched. So they knew, or guessed. Sirillai turned to him, calm. Does it matter? She asked softly. He shook his head. No, not if you still want me here. She smiled. Always. Then, to the generals. He is mine, and I am no longer yours to command. The battle that followed lit up the night sky. Energy beams tore through the air. Gravity fields warped and shattered. Ren fought not with strength, but with cleverness. Using his wristband to trap enemies in light cages, redirecting blasts into the ground, even tricking one general into chasing a hologram of himself. Sirillai was magnificent, dancing through the chaos, her golden armor blazing, the heartstone pulsing with power. But the generals were relentless, merging their spirits into a single monstrous form, a towering beast of shadow and steel. It slammed into her, sending her crashing through a tower. Ren screamed her name. Crawling from the rubble, Sirillai raised a hand. Ren, the Heartstone. If I fall, take it. Run. Save yourself. He ran to her instead, kneeling in the dust. Not happening. We're in this together. He activated his wristband, linking it to her armor's frequency. Remember that harmony thing you talked about? Let's test it. Together, they focused human and alien, thief and queen, liar and truthseer, channeling energy not in domination, but in unity. The Heartstone erupted in a wave of pure light, not destructive, but cleansing. The shadow beast shrieked as the light unraveled it, freeing the trapped souls within. One by one, the general's spirits bowed, not in defeat, but in recognition. You have truly returned, they whispered, and with a heart greater than ours. And then, like mist in morning sun, they were gone. Exhausted, bleeding, Ren collapsed beside her. She smiled weakly. You are full of surprises. He chuckled. Told you I was built different. She laughed, then winced. Stay with me, she whispered. Always. He took her hand. Where else would I go? You're stuck with me, your radiance. She closed her eyes. Call me Sir. The days that followed the battle were quiet. Too quiet, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. The palace stood restored, its singing gardens blooming brighter than before, the fountains flowing with renewed energy. Yet beneath the calm, a tension hummed through the air, subtle but undeniable. Ren noticed it first in the way Sirillai would sometimes pause mid-sentence, her golden eyes distant, as though listening to a voice only she could hear. She'd smile when he looked at her. Yes, but there was something guarded behind it now, like a door left slightly ajar, revealing shadows within. He tried not to dwell on it. After all, they had survived an attack from vengeful spirits, confessed their love under a sky full of floating lanterns, and somehow, impossibly, found peace. But Ren wasn't built for peace. He was a scavenger, trained to notice cracks before they became collapses. And one evening, while wandering the Hall of Whispers, a corridor lined with mirrors that showed glimpses of possible futures, he saw something that made his blood run cold. In the glass, he didn't see himself. Not exactly. He saw her, standing alone in the throne room, older, paler, her white hair streaked with silver that wasn't hers. She wore the full armor of the Lightbringer, but her hand rested on the Heartstone with sorrow, not pride. And beside her throne sat an empty chair, one carved in human design, shaped for someone small, ragged, mortal. At the base of it lay a single, faded thermal glove. His glove. The image flickered, then changed. Sirillai reaching out toward a starship launching into deep space, her face twisted in grief. A final whisper echoed from the mirror. You were never meant to stay. Ren stumbled back, heart pounding. Lumi, he called, voice tight. What was that? The AI's voice came gently. The mirrors show echoes of what may be. Not prophecy. Possibility. But why would she be mourning me? I'm right here. Perhaps, Lumi said. Because one day you won't be. That night, he confronted Sirillai. They sat on the balcony where she'd first kissed him, the stars stretching endlessly above. He told her about the vision. She listened in silence, her fingers tracing the edge of her armor. When he finished, she exhaled slowly, like a sigh carried across centuries. There are things I haven't told you, she admitted. About the Heartstone. About my return. Ren tensed. Like what? She turned to him, her eyes glowing faintly. I am not fully alive, Ren. Not in the way you understand. My body is sustained by the Heartstone's energy. My spirit was fractured when I died. You didn't just awaken me, you anchored me to this world. But anchors wear down, especially when tied to something temporary. Temporary? He asked, throat dry. You mean me? She nodded. Zanari do not die easily. We transcend. But mortals, you burn bright and fast. And when your light fades, the bond between us will break. I will either fade with you, or survive alone. Forever. Ren stared at the stars, suddenly feeling very small. All this time he'd thought the danger was outside, the rebels, the spirits, the war. But the true enemy was time itself. His own mortality was a ticking bomb in the heart of their love. So what happens? He whispered. I grow old, die, and you're left with nothing. No, she said fiercely. I refuse that future. There is another way. She led him deep beneath the palace, to a chamber sealed since the fall of the empire. A vault of living crystal, pulsing with ancient power. In its center stood a pedestal holding a second heartstone, cracked and dark. This is the shadow core, she explained. A twin to mine, forged in balance. Legend says that if two hearts bind, one light, one life, they can share existence. Extend it. Merge destinies. Ren frowned. You're saying I could live longer? Like you. Not live longer, she corrected. Transform. You would become part Zanari. Your soul fused with the core. But the process is irreversible. You would lose your humanity. Your memories might fade. You might not even be you anymore. He stepped back. You want to turn me into one of you? I want to keep you, she said, voice breaking. Is that so wrong? They stood in silence, the weight of forever pressing down on them. Ren thought of his old life. The dust towns, the scavenging runs, the taste of stale water under a red sun. He thought of laughter in gravity chess, of Sirillai dancing barefoot in the rain room, of her calling him Kalen Vire, like it meant something sacred. Could he give up being human to stay with her? Could he want to? Before he could answer, alarms blared through the palace. Red light flooded the chamber. Lumi's voice crackled overhead. Unknown vessel approaching. High energy signature. Design matches pre-imperial Earth fleet. Ren froze. Earth? But we've been gone for months. They think I'm dead. Sirillai's expression hardened. Then they've come looking for relics. Or revenge. Through the surveillance orbs, they watched a sleek, angular ship descend through the atmosphere, human design, but upgraded with stolen Zanari tech. It landed roughly in the desert, kicking up a storm of sand. 3 figures emerged, clad in black combat suits, faces hidden behind visors. One carried a device humming with anti-energy, a heartstone extractor. Ren recognized the insignia on their shoulders. The Eclipse Division, Earth's most ruthless salvage corps, known for stripping alien ruins and selling the pieces to warlords. And leading them, a woman with sharp eyes and a scar across her cheek. Captain Miratov, his former partner, the one who'd left him for dead during a raid on a derelict moon station. She thinks I betrayed her, Ren muttered. She's here to finish the job. Sirillai placed a hand on his arm. Let me handle this. No, he said firmly. This is my past. I face it. He met them at the edge of the dunes, alone, hands raised. Mira sneered as she approached. Well, well, Ren the rat, playing king among gods. I didn't steal anything, he said. Not really. You're wearing solar silk, she snapped. Living in a palace. While I've been scraping rust off wrecks. You found the queen's tomb, didn't you? And you woke her up somehow. That means the Heartstone's active. Worth more than every planet in this sector. It's not for sale, Ren said. Mira laughed. Everything's for sale. Even love. She raised her weapon. Step aside, or I'll take it from your corpse. Before she could fire, a beam of gold light struck the ground between them, splitting the sand like lightning. Sirillai descended from the sky, radiant and terrible, her armor blazing. You dare threaten him? Her voice echoed with power. He is under my protection. Mira didn't flinch. You're using a human as a puppet. Pathetic. You were supposed to be a goddess. I am more than that, Sirillai said. I am in love. The fight erupted instantly. Mira fired the extractor, sending a pulse that made Sirillai stagger, the heartstone flickering. Ren tackled one of the soldiers, disarming him with a move he'd learned in back alley brawls. The second lunged at Sirillai with a plasma blade, but she caught his wrist and froze him solid with a blast of cryolight. Mira, desperate, aimed the extractor directly at Ren. "If I can't have the stone," she snarled, "I'll take the anchor." The beam hit him square in the chest. Pain exploded through his body, not burning, but unmaking. He felt his cells vibrating, his connection to Sirillai tearing like a thread pulled too hard. He screamed, collapsing to his knees as the heartstone in her chest dimmed. Sirillai shrieked, rushing to him, but Mira fired again. This time, the beam struck her. The heartstone cracked with a sound like breaking stars. And then silence. Sirillai fell to her knees, her glow fading, her breath shallow. The armor dulled. Her white hair lost its luster. "Ren," she whispered. "The bond. It's broken." Ren crawled to her, clutching her hand. "No, no, no, no. Stay with me." "I can't," she said weakly. "Without the heartstone, I cannot remain." Mira stood over them, panting. "It's over. I win." But as she reached for the cracked gem, the ground trembled. From the palace, a low hum rose, the shadow core, responding to the damage of its twin. The cracked heartstone in Sirillai's chest pulsed once, then leapt from her armor and shot into the air, merging with the energy of the core rising from below. A column of light erupted, engulfing Ren and Sirillai. When it faded, they were changed. Ren stood taller, his skin faintly luminous, his eyes now glowing a soft blue. The scars on his arms shimmered with embedded circuitry, Zenari biotech, fused into his flesh. He felt different, stronger, calmer, as if time had slowed around him. Beside him, Sirillai breathed deeply, her color returning, her armor reforged in a blend of gold and silver. The heartstone was whole again, but now split between them, one half in her chest, the other embedded in his. "What happened?" Ren asked. Lumi's voice came from a nearby orb. "Fascinating. The core didn't just repair the heartstone. It merged them. Your souls synchronized during the energy surge. You're not just bonded now. You're linked. Two bodies. One soul light." Mira stared, horrified. "You're not human anymore." Ren looked at his hands, then at Sirillai, who smiled with tears in her eyes. "Maybe not," he said, "but I'm still me, and I'm not letting go." Mira activated her comms. "This is Tove. Mission failed. Repeat, mission failed. The asset is beyond retrieval." She glared at them. "Enjoy your forever, monsters." Then she and her men retreated to their ship, vanishing into the sky. Alone again, Ren and Sirillai stood in the desert, the twin stones in their chests pulsing in rhythm. "You're stuck with me now," he said, grinning. "For eternity," she replied, kissing him. But as they walked back to the palace, a new unease settled over Ren, because when he looked into the mirrors now, he didn't see visions of death. He saw other futures, versions of himself with cold eyes, speaking in a voice not his own, commanding Zenari legions under a black sun. And sometimes, late at night, he heard whispers in his mind. Ancient, hungry voices from the core, murmuring promises of power, of conquest, of becoming more than mortal, more than savior, more than man. Love had saved them, but fusion had changed them. And somewhere in the space between heartbeats, something new was waking up. Something that wore Ren's face, but dreamed Sirillai's wars. Years melted into one another like starlight through crystal, soft and golden. The desert battlefield where Ren had once crept like a shadow in search of treasure was now a garden of living light. Flowers that bloomed only at dawn, trees with leaves shaped like tiny crowns, and rivers that sang lullabies as they wound through the rebuilt city of Ziwanera, named in honor of the reborn queen and her unlikely king. Where war machines once rusted, children now played, their laughter carried on warm winds scented with jasmine and ozone. And at the heart of it all stood the palace, no longer just a monument to a fallen empire, but a home, alive, breathing, pulsing gently with the rhythm of two hearts beating as one. Ren sat on the grand balcony of the Sunspire, his bare feet propped on the railing, a cup of steaming moonberry tea in hand, his favorite, though he still claimed it tasted like burnt candy. Around him, chaos reigned in the sweetest way possible. 3 small figures zoomed past on gravity scooters, squealing as they chased each other in looping spirals above the courtyard. 2 more were arguing over who got to feed the sky lizards, a job usually reserved for the eldest, while a 6th, a tiny girl with silver white hair and bright blue eyes, crawled into his lap, clutching a half-eaten fruit and a stuffed toy shaped like a malfunctioning drone. "Dada," she mumbled sleepily, nestling against his chest. He smiled, brushing a strand of her hair back. "Hey, little spark. Shouldn't you be napping?" She shook her head stubbornly. "No. Mama says nap time is for boring people." Ren chuckled. "Well, your mama also once tried to summon thunder indoors to test acoustics. So maybe don't take all her advice." Behind him, the air shimmered, and Sirillai stepped onto the balcony, radiant as ever, though now softened by time and motherhood. Her armor was lighter these days, more ceremonial than combat-ready, and she wore it open over a flowing gown woven from sunlight thread. Her white hair cascaded down her back, streaked faintly with blue where the Heartstone's energy had intertwined with her being. She leaned against the pillar, watching their children with a warmth in her golden eyes that could melt stars. "You're spoiling them again," she said, smiling. "Me?" Ren feigned offense. "I'm teaching them independence. Look at them, they're flying, arguing, probably plotting world domination. That's parenting." She laughed, the sound still like wind chimes in a summer storm, and came to sit beside him, resting her head on his shoulder. "Remember when you thought stealing 1 diamond would make you rich?" He grinned. "Oh, I remember. Thought I'd buy a sand skimmer, retire on Titan's moons, drink synth coffee till I forgot my name. And now," he looked around, the palace, the city, the sky painted in hues of lavender and gold, their children laughing like music made flesh. He placed a hand over the faint glow in his chest where the fused heartstone pulsed in sync with hers. "Now I've got everything I never knew I wanted." They had married under the Twin Moons Festival, a ceremony witnessed by thousands. Humans who had settled in the New Peace, Zanari returnees emerging from exile, even a few grudging diplomats from Earth who came not to fight, but to trade. There had been no grand declaration of power, no oath of conquest. Just Ren, in robes stitched with human constellations and Zanari glyphs, standing before Sirillai beneath an arch of living light, saying words that surprised even himself. "I don't know how I earned you, but I promised to spend every lifetime trying to deserve you." She had wept then, something no Zanari queen had done in 10,000 years, and the stars themselves seemed to lean closer to listen. Their children were miracles, not quite human, not quite Zanari, but something beautifully in between, each born with a spark of the Heartstone's energy, glowing faintly at birth, their eyes changing color with their moods. They aged slower than humans, learned faster, dreamed in multiple languages. Some showed early signs of telepathic bonds. Others could manipulate light with their hands before they could walk. Scientists called them hybrids. Poets called them the Dawnborn. Ren just called them his, and loved them fiercely. Sometimes, when the night was quiet and the kids were finally asleep, a rare and sacred event, Ren and Sirillai would walk the old battlefield, the place where it all began, now covered in wildflowers and memorial stones engraved with names of the fallen, both friend and foe. Once, he knelt and brushed away sand from a half-buried laser cutter, the very tool he'd used to pry open her armor. He kept it now, mounted on the wall of their bedroom, next to a framed image of him looking terrified, mid-theft, caught on a security orb. "Proof," he'd say, "that I was once a professional criminal." She'd roll her eyes and kiss him anyway. One evening, as they sat together on a hill overlooking the city, their youngest, barely 3, already floating 3 inches off the ground when excited, curled up between them, Sirillai turned to Ren and asked softly, "Do you ever miss it? Your old life?" He thought for a moment. The freedom? Sometimes. The lack of diaper duty? Absolutely. But miss it? No. He took her hand, interlacing their fingers. That life was about surviving. This one's about living, about building, loving, being needed. She smiled. "You were always meant for more than scraps and shadows." Or, he teased, "I just got really lucky with my burglary attempt." She elbowed him lightly. "You saved me. I stole from you. You gave me back my soul. I panicked and dropped the diamond into your chest. And yet," she whispered, leaning in, "the universe chose that moment. That you." Laughing, Ren scooped up 2 of them and let the others cling to his arms and legs like joyful barnacles as he carried them inside. Sirillai followed, shaking her head, her light trailing behind her like a comet's tail. Later, after stories and songs and the long, tender work of tucking 6 little souls into beds that hovered just above the floor, Ren stood at the window of their room, gazing out at the city, their city, alive with light and joy. Sirillai came up behind him, wrapping her arms around his waist, resting her chin on his shoulder. "What are you thinking?" she asked. He smiled. "Just that if some dusty, desperate thief had told me back then that I'd end up here. King of an alien empire, married to a goddess, father to 6 magical kids, I'd have laughed in his face. And now, he turned, pulling her close, kissing her forehead. Now I tell him to keep digging, because sometimes the greatest treasures aren't what you steal, but what steals you." And as the twin heartstones glowed softly between them, in perfect harmony, the stars above blinked in silent agreement. This was no fairy tale. It was better. It was real. And it was just beginning.